Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on Tuesday, the 11th of August, for our now fortnightly Wiltshire Library Tea and Chat sessions. My name is Steph. I normally work at Melksham Library, and over the last few months, myself and a couple of colleagues, Basil and Phil in particular, we've been sharing a number of poetry and readings with you on Tuesday afternoons. Perfect time to kind of put your feet up and get yourself a drink. It's very hot today. Apparently, it's National Afternoon Tea Week, which I've only just found out about. I love my afternoon teas. I've got a few favourite spots. One of my favourite places is the Bridge Tea Rooms in Bradford and Avon, but there's a number of places as well. I'm finding it too hot today for a hot drink, so I've made myself a lovely homemade iced latte. So I've got a nice one of those little whizzy things, very easy to make, and this is delicious. I hope you've got either a cold drink, or perhaps you're still happy, one of those, a tea drinker who likes to drink tea. I've been told that hot tea is still cooling on a hot day. Not been a tea drinker, I don't know about that. But anyway, yes, so happy afternoon tea week, wherever you are. I hope you're managing to keep cool because it's incredibly hot at the moment. Anyway, as you might have seen on the promotions from Facebook, today I'm going to be looking at a number of poets that have been chosen and requested by a number of staff from Wiltshire Libraries. I did ask them to send in any of their favourite poems, so I'm just going to be sharing a few of their favourite poems today. And we'd love to hear from you what your favourite poems are, and perhaps we'll be able to include them over the next few months on future kind of tea and chats on a Tuesday. I'm going to start with one. This is a favourite. So this is chosen from Jackie Notman, who's our senior library assistant at Calne Community Library. And she has chosen this poem by John Keats. John Keats, one of the famous romantic poets. We've had a number of romantic poets over the months, like Wordsworth, Byron, John Clare and Shelley. And I think now today is a good time to have one by Keats. At the time, it's actually Autumn by Keats, which on a hot day like this seems a bit strange. We have had a poem, I think it was Rossetti's Summer poem a few months ago, but now, so I'm actually going to read you Autumn, as I say, by John Keats, and from my lovely book I'm reading again today, Poems in Nature. It's a lovely little book. I would highly recommend it. It's just it's a little book, but it's just full of some of the most favourite and just really lovely poems about nature. So let's get started. I'll have a quick drink, and let's get started with Keats's To Autumn. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples and mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells, with a sweet kernel to set budding more, and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has brimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks aboard may find through thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies while they hook, spares the next swathe and all in its twined flowers, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn, among the river sallows borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. It talks about, obviously, autumn as well. You know, we think about autumn, we think about harvest maybe, but I don't know about you, the weather this year has meant that some fruits are just ripening so much earlier than normal. This year we have an apple tree, and they're already way bigger than they were at the end of September last year. In fact, they've been, you know, for the last couple of weeks, and they're already, we have actually started eating some of them as they're falling. Some of the windfalls we're taking in and eating, and they're fine to eat, which is, you know, we're beginning of August. The hedgerows are full of ripening blackberries already. My dad's been gathering them by the tubs full and freezing them. There's so many of them again, which just seem really early. But yeah, that was Keats to Autumn, and I'd say that was a request and the favourite one of Jackie from Carn Library. So I'm going to move on now, and I've got another short poem to share with you. And it's by it was one of the most prominent of the early English poets of North America. So this was written in the 1600s, and it's by Anne Bradstreet. And this is was a favourite of Charlotte Latham, who is works at Chippenham Library. So she's Chippenham Library Senior Library Assistant at Charlotte. And so she's chosen this, and it's To My Dear and Loving Husband. If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare me with ye women if you can. I prize thy love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the East doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense. Thy love is such I can no way repay. The heavens reward thee manifold, I pray. Then while we live in love, let's so persevere, that when we live no more, we may live ever. That's quite a short one, very romantic, and I think, as Charlotte said herself, it could double as a nice message to put in an anniversary card maybe. So that's by Anne Bradstreet, who's one of the early English poets writing in North America. Just wanted to say another favourite. I'm not actually going to read out today because Phil, my colleague from Salisbury, he actually did read this out at the start of lockdown. But I just wanted to mention that another favourite from Katie at Secular, who works in Trowbridge Library, is Leisure by William Henry Davies. As I say, Phil read it out a couple of months ago. Do check it out if you didn't hear Phil read it out. It's really poignant in lockdown. It's all about just using the time we have to kind of stop and look and appreciate nature, which I think a lot of people have really done, over the last 3-4 months now. So do check out Leisure, and that's a favourite by Katie. Before I move on to the last couple of poems, I'm actually going to have a break from poetry. And I want to just share some excerpts from a book that has been recommended by our stock librarian, Jess Phillips. And she's got this old book, it used to belong to her dad apparently. So this is a fantastic book called School Yarns and Howlers by Frank M. Richmond. It was published in 1934, and Jess thinks it's absolutely hilarious. And I'm just want to read out some excerpts from some school boys' homework. And if you listen very carefully and imagine this being written in schoolboy handwriting. Okay. Shakespeare lived at Windsor with his merry wives. The king wore a scarlet robe trimmed with vermin. Barbarians are things put into bicycles to make them run smoothly. The equator is a menagerie lion running round the world and through Africa. The mountaineers climbed Vesuvius only to find the creator smoking at the top. I like that one, visual. To remove air from a flask, first fill the flask with water, And then tip the water out and put the cork in quickly. And a ghost is an invisible object which can be only seen at night. And then finally, a little short extract of a little story, a little anecdote from School Yarns and Howlers by Frank H. Richmond. And it says that a North Country teacher secured a headship of a remote school in Hampshire. Wishing to test the brightness of his pupils, one day he selected a solid youth and said, "Now, what would you do if I told you the school was on fire?" "I'd doubt it," replied the child. For his doubting, the youth received some punishment. But imagine the headmaster's amazement when he learned that doubting was a Hampshire word meaning the same as douse, to thoroughly water on a fire. So the poor boy had honestly said the right answer, "I would doubt it." But the new teacher had not understood him and he punished him. I hope he apologised. I suspect he didn't. I don't think people were as big as apologies in those days. But anyway, hopefully the boy did recover from that. And that was, I say, so a recommendation from a book by Jess Phillips, School Yarns and Howlers. So do Google that and see if you can get hold of that, or maybe the more extracts to be found online. So I'm going to move on now to another poem, which is from my lovely book on poetry. This is a favourite of Pete Waterman, who is our Access and Volunteer Development Manager. He formerly was the Community Library Manager of Warminster, so some of you might know him from Warminster. And one of his favourites is this poem, which is called The Windhover. And it was written in the 1800s by an English poet, Gerard Manley Hopkins, who was also a Jesuit priest. And he, one of his poems, I'm going to share with you, The Windhover, it describes the beautiful description of a kestrel flying on the wing. And Gerald Manley Hopkins, being a Jesuit priest, he dedicated this poem to Christ our Lord. So this is The Windhover. I caught this morning's minion, kingdom of daylight, dauphin, dapple, dawn-drawn falcon in his riding, of the rolling level underneath him, steady air and striding. High there, how he rung upon the rein of a wimpling wing, in his ecstasy, then off, forth on swing. As a skate's heel sweeps smooth on a bow bend, the hurl and gliding, rebuff the big wind. My heart in hiding stirred for a bird, the achieve of, the mastery of the thing. Brute beauty and valour and act, oh, air, pride, plume, here, buckle and the fire that breaks from thee, then a billion times told lovelier, more dangerous, oh my chevalier. No wonder of it, sheer plod makes plough down Sicilian, shine and blue bleak embers, ah my dear, fall, gore themselves, and gash gold vermilion. Just really loved it. I really love the words of that part. I think I'm going to have to reread this over and really kind of dwell on it, because I think some of the description there, you know, it's just describing, isn't it? You know, this kestrel, you know, and this beauty of it, but also the power and the brute, you know, the British, you know, it's a hunter, isn't it? After all, a bird of prey. Yeah, that's a lovely one. That was a favourite of Pete Waterman. I say Access and Volunteer Development Manager. And I'm going to finish on another one which was chosen by Pete. He chose two favourite poems. This one is a longer poem, and it's actually by D.H. Lawrence, who is more famous and more well known for the novels that he wrote. I mean, his famous novels, the Rainbow, the Sons and Lovers, and of course Lady Chatterley's Lover. But he also wrote a lot of poetry, and I think possibly a little underrated as a poet. I was talking to my husband who studied literature. He thinks he's a big fan. He says Lawrence wrote some really good poetry, some really powerful stuff. And this one I'm going to read today, it's actually in free verse. So there's no specific pattern of rhyme or rhythm. It's a 16 stanza poem, but again, the stanzas are in varying lengths. Some of them as short as 2 lines, some stretching out to 17. So it's, as I say, it's written in free verse, and it's called Snake. So I'm just going to have a quick drink of my lovely iced latte, and just picture, because it's written, and it is written on a very hot day, which is rather appropriate because it's absolutely boiling where I am. I don't know, I'm sure it's very hot. Yeah, I think it's hot everywhere in the country today. So it is on a really hot day. So just close your eyes if you like, and just picture the scene. A snake came to my water trough on a hot, hot day, and I in pyjamas for the heat to drink there. In the deep, strange scented shade of the great dark carob tree, I came down the steps with my pitcher, and must stand and wait, for there he was at the trough before me. He reached down from a fissure in the earth wall in the gloom, and trailed his yellow-brown slackness soft-bellied down over the edge of the stone trough, and rested his throat upon the stone bottom. And where the water had dripped from the tap in the small clearness, he sipped with his straight mouth, softly drank through his straight gums into his slack, long body, silently. Someone was before me at my water trough, and I, like a second comer, waiting. He lifted his head from his drinking as cattle do, and looked at me vaguely as drinking cattle do, and flickered his 2-forked tongue from his lips, and mused a moment, and stooped, and drank a little more. Being earth brown, earth golden from the burning bowels of the earth, on the day of Sicilian July with Etna smoking, the voice of my education said to me, he must be killed. For in Sicily the black snakes are innocent, but the gold are venomous. And voices in me said, if you were a man, you would take a stick and break him now and finish him off. But must I confess how I liked him? How glad I was he had come like a guest in quiet to drink at my water trough, and depart peaceful, pacified and thankless into the burning bowels of this earth. Was it cowardice that I dared not kill him? Was it perversely that I longed to talk to him? Was it humility to feel so honoured? I felt so honoured. And yet those voices, if you were not afraid, you would kill him. And truly I was afraid. I was most afraid, but even so honoured still more that he should seek my hospitality from out the dark door of the secret earth. He drank enough and lifted his head dreamily as one who was drunken, and flickered his tongue like a forked knight on the air, so black, seeming to lick his lips, and looked around like a god unseen into the air, and slowly turned his head, and slowly, very slowly, as if thrice a dream, proceeded to draw his slow length curving round, and climb again the broken bank of my war face. And as he put his head into that dreadful hole, and as he slowly drew up, snake easing his shoulders and entered further, a sort of horror, a sort of protest against his withdrawing into that horrid black hole, deliberately going into the blackness and slowly drawing himself after, overcame me now. His back was turned. I looked round and put down my picture. I picked up a clumsy log and threw it at the water trough with a clatter. I think it did not hit him, but suddenly that part of him that was left behind convulsed in an undignified haste, writhed like lightning, and was gone into the black hole, the earth-lit fissure in the wall front, at which in the intense still noon I stared with fascination, and immediately I regretted it. I thought, how paltry, how vulgar, what a mean act. I despised myself and the voices of my accursed human education. And I thought of the albatross, and I wished he would come back, my snake, for he seemed to me again like a king in exile, uncrowned in the underworld, now due to be crowned again. And so I miss my chance with one of the lords of life, and I have something to expiate a pettiness. Powerful words and great description by D.H. Lawrence. You could really picture the scene, or I could really picture the scene in my head, even as I was reading it. And I think the writer is writing, isn't he? He's obviously disgusted with himself, and it's almost like an act of penance that he's confessing that he attacked a creature that wasn't actually an immediate threat. But of course, he'd been conditioned that such creatures, poisonous snakes, are a threat to mankind and therefore must be killed. So yeah, attack before you're attacked kind of attitude. But yeah, and it's a shame because obviously he, I mean, if we think about now in nature, we most people, well, we love in this country, don't we, to go out. We love spotting wild animals. I've been lucky enough to spot a number of adders in recent years in sand dunes in I think it's down Three Cliff Bay in Wales. On the Gower, yeah, it was in the Gower. Saw an adder there in line, and a couple of years ago I also saw one kind of literally ran in front of me in the path. Well, slithered across down in Linton Lynmouth in North Devon, and it was very exciting. I mean, I know that adders are poisonous, but seeing them in their natural habitat, and it was just lovely. It wasn't causing a threat, and I think that's what this poet thought. He was admiring this creature. But then he just suddenly lashed out, didn't he? He'd been trained to lash out. Anyway, so that's it. They were two favourite poems selected by Pete Waterman. I think a good choice there, and a good choice for all of them. I enjoyed all of those today, and I enjoyed sharing them with you. I hope you enjoyed them too. Please do message us or comment if you do have any favourites that you'd like to share with us, and copyright permitting, we will maybe read them out in the next few months at one of our tea and chat sessions on a Tuesday afternoon. As you might have seen, our tea and chats have moved to fortnightly now, so your next tea and chat is going to be in 2 weeks, which will be the 15th of August, and that should be, I believe, with Basil from Trowbridge. I do look out for our Facebook post just to confirm that. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed listening to those poems. Enjoy your drink, whether it's a nice cool drink or whether you're still happy having a hot drink on a day like this. And you take care, and all the best. And yet, as I say, do keep those messages coming in. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.